But on to something else. We're going to be talking with, speaking of brokerages here, we're welcoming on Jay Gustafson. I'm sorry if I'm spelling your name wrong.
Gustafson, you're close enough.
Gustafson.
Yeah.
One messes up my name too.
It's all right. It's all right.
EVP of Brokerage Operations at Echo Global Logistics, talking about how 3PLs can help carriers navigate challenging market conditions. And it is definitely challenging.
It's been interesting.
Let's talk about that. And so first, tell us a little bit about yourself, and let's get started.
Sure. So my name's Jay Gustafson, EVP of Brokerage Operations at Echo Global Logistics. I've been in the industry since about 2004. In my current role at Echo, I oversee a combination of both our capacity and internal operations, and then work with our technology organization on our overall digital transformation strategy.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things, being in the industry since the OG early days, brokerages have grown market share. Like when I started in 14, someone had said it was like the 3-3-1, 3 asset-based carriers, 1 broker in your routing guide. But now brokerage market share is estimated between 30 and 50%.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that, especially how growing the share, but now as we're kind of, depending upon who you ask in the upswing, keeping it.
Yeah, so I'd say the carrier brokerage shipper dynamics have certainly changed from when I entered the industry in 2004. I remember early on in my career, broker was almost like a 4-letter word. It was like a bad word. It was you tried to navigate how to express who you were to the companies you were speaking with. Now, 3PLs, freight brokerages, are looked at not just as the shipper community, as a primary carrier within their network. Carriers are looking at 3PLs as a primary source of freight. In many ways, brokers are looked at as a shipper now to the carrier community. And so, from my point of view, during these challenging times over the last couple of years, the opportunity for 3PLs to act as business partners to carriers, help them run smarter, more thoughtful operations has really become prevalent.
And what are your thoughts as well? There's been talk about an impending upswing, depends on who you ask. I like the conversation. It is still bad, but at least it's not as bad as yesterday. So somebody out there is going to say, I still can't make money. Don't give me that. But as we're looking at that and how as carriers need to maintain relationships, in your experiences, it felt like carriers, at least my experiences, carriers didn't always have a good relationship when I was a broker.
Sure.
It really gave me a hard time. How should we treat this moving forward in this new upswing with technology?
So from my standpoint, this is a relationship-driven business, and relationships give carriers access to high-quality, repetitive freight movements. That's the relationship really opens that door. And so as you think about a soft market or a tight market, you want predictability. You want to have a smooth operating schedule. You don't, as a trucking company, want to just chase transactional opportunities that are maybe available on a load board. And so I think the value proposition to carriers in loose markets or tight markets remains the same. 3PLs are a source of repetitive, repeat business. We're not moving freight looking at each shipment as an individual transaction. We're looking to keep fleets moving. We're looking to contract business with regular carriers. That's even more important to both us and the trucking companies we work with in a tight market. And so I really think that the value proposition as we hopefully enter that upswing in the market is that carriers can look at 3PLs as a shipper partner and someone who can be a repetitive source of business, so that in the event the market does go the wrong direction, the freight's still there, the predictability in their shipping schedule is still there. Hot market, loose market, the value proposition is pretty much the same in my eyes.
And I always have a question. One of my biggest things I'm thinking of is the routing guide. We like to talk about with Sonar Data, routing guide failures reaching a certain point. Is there a concern, especially in carrier-broker relationships, that certain sizes will act differently depending upon where we are in the market? Is that ever a concern?
I think it's a concern, and it's part of our procurement strategy. I don't know if you could necessarily say a certain demographic operates in a certain way. You see many owner-operators whose business is built off of deep customer or 3PL relationships where they're doing the same moves every single week. And so I think it's a little bit less about the size of the entity and more about their approach to having a focused niche region, set of lanes that they're moving. The carriers that are, again, just chasing the transactional opportunities, I think are the ones that really struggle to operate in this current market condition.
Well, there's some old data I saw. The average age of a carrier now is like 3.4 years. It was down to 1 year during 2020 to 2021. Is there a new cadre of carriers? You've been in the biz since '04. You've seen a lot of different types of carriers and technology adoption rates. Is there anything of like a new breed of carrier that you want to target? Is there something I can do as a carrier to make me look better?
I think there's a number of things. I'd say and I think the softer market really put focus on three key things in my mind: service, fraud prevention, as you were just talking to Lisa about for a few minutes, and also environmentally friendly operations. And so I think carriers that focus on service, focus on risk mitigation, focusing on reducing their carbon footprint, they're differentiating themselves from the general carrier population. And those are the types of carriers that we want to work with. We want to work with carriers that are, again, not just chasing the high money freight, but are building sustainable businesses. And in this market especially, service is the name of the game. And so the companies that focus on on-time pickup, on-time delivery, high levels of communication, data visibility from a integration standpoint, those are the companies that are getting increased volume from Echo. That it influences our decision-making around who actually gets booked on our freight.
So like ELD integration, sharing that data, making sure you're using the tracking, having the driver app, that kind of.
I think it's that, and it's also when problems occur, how you deal with those exceptions. I think that the technology allows for smoother access or easier access to information.
Yeah.
It's really how you deal with the issues when the exceptions occur.
Instead of saying my truck is broke down, please be honest if it did break down or if your driver slept in.
Yep.
So, I love the conversation because carrier-broker relationships are one of those kind of like, sometimes you feel like you're frenemies, sometimes you're not.
Sure.
But everyone needs each other in this regard. If I'm looking ahead, moving forward, trying to grow is there still a sweet spot in terms of, I remember it's like 50 to 150, 25 to 75, depends on who you ask. Has the technology changed that game where if I'm looking I can have access at any fleet size so long as I do the technology?
The technology has definitely opened up the long tail of trucking companies that 3PLs typically would have struggled to deal with purely through person-to-person relationships via phone and email. So I think the technology for us in many ways has acted as like a marketing engine to bring new carriers into our network, to introduce capacity to us that we may not have discovered on our own. And then the combination of the relationship plus the technology really allows for that fleet to foster in terms of the relationship with Echo. And so while it used to be really easy to pick up a phone and call a larger fleet and get access to dozens of equipment, the technology is now enabling that same type of access to information and access to capacity that didn't exist historically.
And, being in your position, conversations with shippers as well, looking at your outlook into 2025, what are some of your thoughts here? I'm not going to pull out the crystal ball. We don't have one yet. But how do you see the market moving ahead? What should carriers and brokers be really cognizant in the next 6 months?
Well, I think that the thing that I'm keeping an eye on is the trajectory that capacity exits the industry. We've been at the bottom of the market now for 24, 30 months, depending on who you speak to. And what's been surprising to me is that while week over week you're seeing more and more trucking companies go out of business, the capacity hasn't necessarily left the industry at the same rate as the active MC numbers have left. So that's really what I'm keeping an eye on. And I think that that's ultimately going to influence where pricing goes this next year. I know some are calling for the freight recession to be over. I think that the capacity exit is really still a little foggy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what I'm personally keeping an eye on to determine where the market goes 6 months, 12 months from now.
And is there any kind of thing in terms of, let's say I'm a carrier, long-established brokers, I've been running this dedicated lane for the past year. I know that rates are going up. How should a carrier handle that conversation if they're treating their brokers like a part of the customer mix? Would that be a trickier conversation? Because I know when I was a broker, I'd be afraid I'd be underwater as the thing's moving. Is there any tips?
We're a partner to the trucking companies that we work with. The last thing we want is keep pushing rates down to a place where a trucking company can't stay in business.
Yeah.
And so we want them to reach out to us proactively, let us know that the market dynamics are changing and maybe their pricing needs to change. We'll look at that opportunity in a thoughtful way and determine based off of service history, carrier relationship, where we think the market's going, and do we keep leveraging that capacity or go out to the market and find somebody new. We do need to make money as a 3PL, but we're nothing without the carriers that we work with on a daily basis. And so if we were only focused on price, churning that carrier out to find the next cheap one wouldn't really create a sustainable operation or allow us to deliver the high levels of service our shippers look to us to deliver.
So it's almost like the savvy carriers need to act like a big carrier in that, where am I at your service scorecard? Where am I in your routing guide? Here's my rate, here's my service, and then come that with a conversation saying, I'm 95%, this other's guy 85.
I think that's a great way to describe it. That's the conversation Echo as a large 3PL is constantly having with our shippers.
Yeah.
And I think you need to put yourself in those shoes as a trucking company and have those thoughtful, data-driven discussions to help you retain business and not just retain, but grow with the 3PLs or shippers that you're working with today.
Well, I think we got a little bit of time left. Any closing thoughts here, market outlook, best thing you want to predict?
Ooh. I
don't have like a sandwich and a hot dog question, but I'm...
Well, I will just say, I think that, there's been the great debate over the last decade around automation. Now you're hearing all of this buzz about AI. And I think, as Craig mentioned in some remarks earlier, this is still a relationship-driven business. From my point of view, the 3PLs that are going to succeed are the ones that have a focus on both technology and relationships. At Echo, our slogan is technology at your fingertips, experts by your side. The technology is there to help automate and provide transparency to some of the mundane tasks that exist within our industry, but the relationships are really what's critical from a growth standpoint and a trust standpoint. And so my bold prediction is that the world of just automating everything in the freight brokerage is a little bit of a pipe dream, and that combination of tech plus deep relationships is really the winning formula.
What's the art of people in a science?
Exactly.
Can't be one or the other.
Can't be one. Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
Jay, really appreciate your time as well. Folks want to learn more, get in contact, best way to find out.
Echo.com, you'll be able to find anything you want about our organization, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Jay Gustafson.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.